The Suicide Prevention Collaborative started in 2015, essentially just in response to a frustration really. There's a whole lot of really great people doing really great things in suicide prevention in the region, but the suicide rates aren't going down. So in 2015 we got together and talked about needing to work differently, and essentially that meant working more collaboratively, working more together. The Safe Space group has been born out of one of the key elements of the collaborative, which is the voice of people with lived experience of suicide and recovery. And they've been telling us over a period of time, really quite loud and clear, that a number of the supports that are around now are good, but they're not meeting all of their needs. And so the conversation began about what would an alternative look like. And one of those is to have a non-clinical support option, something that's led and run by people who have their own lived experience, and they use that to support people when they're really distressed.
So in an ideal world, we'd see safe spaces as commonly as we'd see psychiatric wards or emergency departments in every area, that there is one, that would provide a genuine alternative for people that both are like me, who have been through the system and have found that very traumatic, and don't want to go back, but also, even more importantly, for people to avoid ever having exposure to that system in the first place.
I think people that have had the actual experience of suicidality need to be involved in determining how an alternative to clinical services looks, how it will feel, how it will operate, and hopefully how it will work to start to bring down the incidence of suicide in this region. It's the sort of place where you can not feel great and go and be among people who know what it's like to feel the way you're feeling, and people who have some insight and understanding into how you're feeling at that time, and may be able to help you reframe your thoughts and feelings, and to help you to come out the other side of that.
A lot of people during the process have talked about it being a warm space, and I think we mean that literally and metaphorically. So the warmth of the connection that you feel with peer support, but also so there's a literal sense of warmth in the architecture, in the furnishings, in every aspect of it. We know that peer-led, peer-supported initiatives are what works, are what people want. There's a genuine appetite for it now, and I think in terms of suicide prevention, this is the embodiment of all of those things, and of the idea that lived experience needs to be baked into the cake of mental health, of the mental health system, and of mental health reform in Australia.
Even in the first few months there have been some really good outcomes from the people involved. One of the key ones, I guess, and we've heard this from a couple of the people who are involved with the group, is that they're finding it one of the most therapeutic things they've ever done. And that's coming from people who have been in hospital, they've seen doctors, they've seen psychologists, etc. They've done a number of other things that have been very helpful in terms of their recovery. But just being part of a conversation about how to improve the supports available, being part of the conversation around system change, and having their voice respected and heard, that's what they're finding incredibly therapeutic.
A few weeks ago, I was in the situation of a clinician having to run through the checklist of what my current risks and protective factors for suicide are. And I actually realised that when I put down my protective factors, one of them is my participation in the collaborative. And it really struck me how amazing that is, that it's not just that I get to be heard, but it's that actually that in itself has now become one of my protective factors against suicide.